Oh boy, the Pokemon versus Yu-Gi-Oh debate. Which game is harder? Make sure you guys smash the and crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. Now, for those of you that know, hi, I am MCool40. I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I play Pokemon. I don't play Pokemon in the standard method of playing the game, though. I play a lot of older formats. I've built a lot of older stuff. I've played a little bit of standard, but the format that I find most fun is actually, for those of you that have followed this channel for a while back, it is the equivalent to Yu-Gi-Oh's format. And it is all of the broken Pokemon. Nope, it's not GLC. It's expanded. It's that amazing format that just gives you that nice card pool, the challenge of putting together the strongest cards that you can bring to the table from those formats. You get to play some of your best, and it's got an existing card pool of about 10 years worth of cards. It's way more extensive than the current standard Pokemon, which I feel sometimes can be very bland and quite boring. Now, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Versus Pokemon debate recently sparked up with this whole, Yu-Gi-Oh's a much more complicated game. Pokemon's easy. Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Both have completely different skill sets in order to play. I'm not going to be the first person to tell you that looking at the standard era Pokemon, I find it very, very boring because of how easy it feels like the interactions are and how not flushed out and developed they are. I actually feel modern era Pokemon card design is quite lacking in a lot of themes when you look at a lot of Pokemon's traditional Pokemon history, but I'm also somebody that loves 2010 format where, Pokemon has the first hand trap and the only hand trap that they've ever had in existence. I find, base to gym challenge a very entertaining format. It's one of the worst formats of Pokemon's history, but I've played 06, I've played 04, I've played, some of the more modern era formats, a lot of black and white, Night March format. I was at 2015 out here. I also really liked Lugia EX because it was very, very challenging back in the day to do that. I've been here for a lot of Pokemon's history. It's just more modern times, the way that the format has felt, it just doesn't feel as fleshed out as some of those older formats. So I'm looking at this from, I understand one big thing that Pokemon's tried to do over the years is they want the game to be as accessible to as many people as they can. And it's kind of felt like it's led to Pokemon dumbing things down. That's not a bad thing. That's their marketing, everybody. Pokemon wants Pokemon to be accessible. They want the game to be easy to understand. They want people to be involved in it. That's why when you look back at some of the history of the game out here, you see that, there are certain times where the game is absolutely terrible. I mean, every card game is going to go on that cycle out here. All right, and there will also be other formats that are a lot more challenging than others. Obviously looking back at these formats in a time capsule, you get the chance to experience and look at some of these and go, wow, that was stupid, or, I can't believe Pokemon allowed that, or, oh yeah, everybody hated that format. Nobody likes it. Hi, 2012. Mewtwo GX everywhere. It's actually insane to see how bad 2012 actually was. And then, you look back at like 2011, where 2011 is like fundamentally a very cool and unique format for the game's history. So I think the debate kind of boils down to this. I think when you're looking at Pokemon through the lens of the modern era, I think that you need to understand the marketing is meant to be easy to understand, eye-catching, that's where you have the SIRs, and it's meant to get people involved with the course of the game by being more appealing, and yet competitive play interactions sometimes feel a little bit watered down, especially in the modern era. But, I look at Expanded and my brain just connects so many more dots, like all these cool expanded cards, all the cool standard cards that sometimes wrote out have this rippling effect on Expanded. And, it's a shame that the format doesn't get much more love than it is, but it does give somebody, who enjoys the Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience a chance to enjoy that level of change and power creep. And Pokemon players absolutely hate complicated game states, man. And I understand that's their marketing. Every casual Pokemon player I've talked to looks at Expanded and they're like, why would anybody ever want to play that? I've got a lot of people in my local area that are like, why would anybody ever want to play Yu-Gi-Oh? It's too complicated. That's fine. You've got people that, once again, you have to understand that in the card game sphere, everybody's going to think differently. People want the more complicated experience, so they play Yu-Gi-Oh! People want a more simplistic experience, so they play Pokemon. One thing I will not take away from Pokemon, though, there's a game plan that has to be set up. Even with all the draw power and all the craziness, energy's still a little bit more restrictive. Yeah, Charizard kind of breaks that. There's ways to get multiple energy attached to things. There's same thing, Yu-Gi-Oh! There's ways to gain additional normal summons. There's ways to break this. It's all highly, highly possible because the game allows you to break these mechanics. But one thing that I've struggled with playing standard Pokemon, besides it being, what I would say not very fun, is that there's a lot of planning multiple turns in advance. If you can't think beyond 2 turns, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Narrows your field of view. Yu-Gi-Oh!, while it might be, to a lot of people a more complicated game, you don't think beyond 2 turns in Pokemon. Or, excuse me, in Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon, you've got to be thinking 3-4 turns in advance. You've got to be thinking about if your opponent has the boss's orders, what your game plan is. Do you have a recovery point? Do you have a chance to set up, do you have, what are the odds? Pokemon's a very big driven game of statistical data. It's a lot of manipulation of numbers and compression to find those outs. Meanwhile, Yu-Gi-Oh! You can say the same thing. It's a game of numbers to find those things, but Pokemon allows you free access to compression to find those things a lot easier. While Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of the same way, you still are relying a lot heavier on those opening hand to kind of sculpt and be able to, set up. It's the same thing in both games. The opening hand dictates everything. But Pokemon is a lot more forgiving in the aspect of things. That's why, once again, we kind of come back to the, Pokemon's an easier game than Yu-Gi-Oh! I will say that. I think Pokemon's a lot easier to understand and to play. But, if you do not have a good grasp on the meta, you have to put in time. This is a big thing that I don't think people understand is, I ignorantly thought that I could put 0 time into Pokemon. And I thought, hey, I'm good at Yu-Gi-Oh!, I should be able to go play regional super easy. No, I got curve stomped pretty badly. Now, once again, I can play Expanded all day long, and I can enjoy the experience, but there is a skill difference, a very big skill diff between the formats. All right, the modern standard experience is a different creature than you might be expecting. You cannot achieve, without 0 time, you cannot achieve any good results in this game. You have to learn the interactions. You need to know where you need to go. You need to understand where you need to go with your combo lines, and you cannot be completely ignorant to that. All right, as simple as people think that the game might be, there is an amount of time that must be had in order to become a Pokemon master. Now, it's the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very complicated game. The rulings, the Konami said-sos, things like that, they get very complicated, but it's also a larger card pool. That's one thing that, obviously appeals much more to Yu-Gi-Oh! Players out here over time is the extensive card pool. And that's the thing that, I guess it allows Pokemon players in the standard meta to feel a little bit more put together and a lot more at ease, is because there's a lot less cards that they need to deal with, which allows, for more interactions and things to kind of shine. And that's where, you'll see wild things with the tech choices and things, because smaller pool allows for more optimization. It's pretty interesting when you start to get into the analyzation of, larger card pool versus smaller card pool, what's available, tech choices to counter things. Yes, the same can be said about Yu-Gi-Oh!, but, technically in Pokemon, you should be able to memorize a lot more of those surprises, you would think. But overall, I do think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a much more complicated game than Pokemon. I'm not going to take a single thing away from Pokemon as somebody that's played a lot of the older formats, who has played Standard and who has played Expanded. There are obviously going to be easier points, but there's also going to be, holy crap, like, what am I doing here? I'm about to get blown out of the water experiences. So, but those are my thoughts. Leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think. What you guys think about the whole Pokemon versus Yu-Gi-Oh! Debate.
Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.